What's poppin' gamers, Empty here. So I've been blasting PoE 2 for the past few weeks and I'm about 150 hours into the game at the time of this recording. So a lot of people are talking about balance issues in Path of Exile 2 right now, so I don't think I need to give any further feedback on that. However, one thing that I don't hear many people talk about are things like UI, quality of life, and accessibility. And just to make things clear, I've been having a blast with PoE 2, so this is not going to be hate speech or anything. This is genuinely just a list of things that I want to see improved in the game. So without further ado, let's get started. The overworld map is currently very clunky. It takes way too long to open, it sometimes has a loading screen in fact. You can move it around in the campaign even though you don't need to. And lastly, I think it's very hard to find where you're actually at on the map, even in campaign. So I've been playing a lot of PoE 2 in parties, especially with my friends, but also in public parties. And one thing I did notice is that reviving your teammates, although it seems really hard in some boss fights, actually feels pretty good. However, when we later found out that you cannot actually revive party members in maps, we were kind of bummed out. I think getting used to a feature and having it later be removed from you again just feels discouraging. So I would suggest, for the sake of consistency, just keep it in the entire game or actually get rid of it for the entire game. One more thing that was kind of funny to me when I did my hardcore playthrough was that instead of a revive marker, obviously you just get a death marker on the screen. Now that death marker is the same one that you get in endgame maps on softcore. However, on hardcore this was actually kind of problematic to have because we went for the Act 1 boss Gionar and it was a public party and 2 of us actually died, but since they wanted to keep watching, they just left the screen on, and that meant that the marker was actually on screen for the entire duration of the fight. And it was really hard to see the mechanics and the abilities of Gionar in that fight. So once again, for visual clarity, I would suggest just make it smaller or remove it completely because honestly, it serves no purpose. And lastly, I think it's kind of a shame that party members cannot look at your Atlas map. I don't think this is a major issue, but I think this will be more relevant when more things are going to get added to the endgame. Alright, let's get started because there's a lot to talk about here. Jeweler orbs should work regardless of order. The way it currently works is that you have to go in order, so that means you have to go from 2 to 3 sockets, from 3 to 4 sockets, and lastly from 4 to 5 sockets. Which then means that you could find a perfect jeweler orb before a greater jeweler orb and not be able to use it. Next up we got the gem screen. My character's attributes I'm missing from the gem menu, which are kind of important if I want to know which gems I can run. So if I want to know what I could actually run on this setup, I would have to switch back and forth between these two menus. And it's not necessarily something they need to change, but it just doesn't feel right. So this next one was broken for items as well, but I believe it got fixed fairly quickly. So when you respec a couple nodes on your tree, specifically attributes for example, and you change them into a different one, and then afterwards you don't meet the attribute requirement on a gem anymore, the game will not notify you that you just bricked your gems in your setup, it would just simply disable them. This is another minor one, but socketing support gems does not actually reflect any changes on the skill gem itself. You would have to open this extra window for that, and this is not that bad, but it does feel kinda off right now. Also, the gem menu is not saving the tabs when you minimize them, and you cannot see your gem level when minimized. You could have the level be displayed on the top right here, for example. Lastly, gem cutting is fun, but it also feels fairly clunky right now. Let me show you what I mean. Leveling up gems is really intuitive until you actually use multiple of the same skill in your setup, and you won't know which one you actually upgrade. It's not a huge issue since you can switch them around at any given time, but it just feels kinda clunky right now. Also, fun fact, you cannot use an uncut skill gem to engrave a gem you already use if that uncut skill gem is actually higher level than your skill in use, because then the engrave option turns into the upgrade option instead. So to fix this issue, I would really like to have a tab in the list here that is just like in use or something like that. Also make it highlight that tab by default once you are gem cutting so that it is quick and easy to upgrade abilities. Alright, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the red flashes on attack that were supposed to indicate that you cannot block them, they just kind of disappeared after Act 1. I legit tried to learn boss fights over and over for hardcore, and I could not see any indicators past Act 1, so I don't know if it's intended or not, but I do know that in the first act, Draven, Executioner, and Gionar all have it, for example. Pausing in PoE 2 is great, I just wish I could still talk and chat, or look at my gear and stats. Alva just loses her ability to gamble items when you put her into the hideout. The worst tier of mods is tier 1 as opposed to the best. Now we have no way of knowing what the best is without looking it up online. I suggest that the game should show the max tier on each mod when you hold down Alt while looking at an item. Salvaging items and disenchanting items should probably both be done on the same bench. There could be 2 buttons here instead of this 1 salvage button, and it would work perfectly fine. Especially since disenchanting an item currently is just another vendor menu that can easily be confused with the actual selling option. Implicit skills on item bases probably need a complete rework if I'm being honest. These skills should probably just be a variable that levels and delevels with your character automatically, or if you want to keep this current system where you have to find higher level base skills on items, make it so that you can't switch to lower levels of that skill. This level 66 life sprig that I cannot use until right before endgame is one of my favorite items. This next one could just be me again honestly, but PoE 2 invented a lot of systems that reduce clutter and bloat in the game, and I really appreciate it. And that's why I don't really know why we still have expedition artifacts in the game the way that they are, and why Danik has to convert them for you to use. Why not just make it one universal currency for all the expedition members, and make it one singular slot on the currency tab? This would solve so many issues for both trading and expedition. Also, it's highly confusing for new players that just started the game. I have around 7.5k hours in PoE 1 and I still don't know which artifact belongs to which member, nor why they have to be different. I think this is one of those things that could be both fixed in PoE 1 and PoE 2, but it's way more relevant in PoE 2 since all the expedition members don't even have a signature function anymore. They all behave like ROG, so why not just make this one thing instead of 4 or 5 different ones? Failed citadels should show up red on the atlas as they are actually bricked and cannot be reran. The red circle on maps was actually supposed to be in the game, but they reverted that change just before launch. The legend in the top left corner still shows the red circle though. Similarly, maps should turn green as soon as they are cleared, so that you know right away if you can keep going or not. If you spec into the reduced attribute nodes on the tree, the game won't calculate for you what this actually means. You will have to do that yourself. I feel like there should be a way to see this on your items. Maybe if you hold down Alt or something, it should say that it's augmented. And the last thing on my list is the instilling window. Now this one is really funny because if you right click one of the emotions, as they call them in this game, you'll bring up this instilling window to anoint your amulets. However, if you actually put in all your items and you do not confirm and close it, your items are all gone. Now don't be worried, they aren't gone forever, but you will have to get another emotion to be able to open that window again. Well, someone out there probably has only had 3 of them and couldn't figure out how to get their amulet back, honestly. And that's it. Share this so GGG can see it, and do not subscribe for more content. Seriously, I don't make content. Mwah! Big kiss. Bye bye.